Warning, warning. This is a warning for parents. Do not allow small children or sensitive people to consume this video. This may contain content and material that is not suitable for young children or sensitive people or killer clowns. But advisement, do not allow small children to watch this video. There is material that they may not understand, and I would advise that you watch the video first before allowing your children to consume the video. Do not sue me.
The battle between an aggressive homosexual agenda and the faith community here in Canada is far from over. But many Christian leaders say it may be the issue that causes a once sleeping church to rise up and be heard.
Hatred and the anger and the bullying that came against us, even though we said, we love you, we don't take from you the opportunity and the freedom to live as you choose. We love you, but we do not agree with you.
Pastor Kevin believes Canadian Christians are in a 2 Chronicles 20 moment.
The word was this battle is not yours, Jehoshaphat. This battle is the Lord's.
And the church is beginning to prepare for what it takes to fight for our kids.
Welcome back. This is Doc. I appreciate you watching the entirety of the video of Transgenderism is After Your Kids. This is the second part to the two-part series. And I just wanted to highlight some of the things that were in the video and some additional information that I didn't include in that. So we want to begin by first saying, did you know that November was Transgender Awareness Month? I'll wait. What exactly is it that we should be aware of? Only thing that I'm aware of is that these guys showed up looking like this.
The park's closed. I'll have to ask you to leave.
Gender lifestyle is not something that we need to celebrate, honor, commemorate, and certainly not surrender our rights to. And we certainly don't need a whole month to be aware of the issues that plagues our culture. Trans issues are mental illness issues. It's like the skinny person who thinks that they're fat. You don't tell the skinny person, you know what? You are fat and you can stand to lose a few more pounds. We don't do that. That's not how you treat it. It's a mental illness. We don't tell the fat person who believes that they're skinny, you know what? You are skinny and you're looking good, girl. We see a lot of those in the club. It's a body image issue. It's something that needs to be taken care of by mental health professionals, not by friends who pretend that they love you by placating and giving in to the actual illness. How about the guy who decides, or the people who decide, who have BIID, body identity integrity disorder, who says, hey, look, I don't need arms and I don't need legs. Do we then say, you know what, you should cut your arms and your legs off, you don't really need them? So I would go out on a limb and say that homosexuality is no different, or transgenderism, to be specific, is no different. These are people who believe that they have a different gender than what they were born with. We don't treat it by rendering false support. And maybe it's genuine for a lot of people. And I say that you're going about it wrong. So hopefully you get my point. All of these disorders require psychiatric help. It's outside of what we can do for them. Let me go on the record as saying this. None of these people deserve to be mistreated, abused, or violence committed against them just because they're different. That's not what I'm advocating. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm not afraid to tell you that it's a mental disorder. And they won't like it, and that's okay. So let me outline some of the consequences of this gender problem. Let's start with the fact that Twitter came out and said that they would be silencing or banning people on Twitter who misgender or dead name trans people. What the heck does that mean? What is dead naming people? How about my objective observation? You can't rid me of it. When I see it, I'm calling it as I see it. Why should I defy all logic and acquiesce to this lunacy, to this fairy tale that they've created in their minds? These organizations like Twitter and others are giving in to this false narrative about hate speech. So they're shutting you down if they don't like what you're saying. Or if people become offended. Even though we live in a hypersensitive culture where everybody is offended by everything. And just opposing someone's opinion is enough for them to cry out hate speech. That's not hate speech. No one's advocating violence. Nobody's advocating abuse or mistreatment against somebody. But we are saying that, listen, we won't tolerate you targeting our children with your indoctrination, calling it acceptance. If it were acceptance, then you wouldn't ask our children this.
Who wants to be a drag queen when they grow up?
I'm confused. Are you confused? Because they said they were born this way. So if you were born this way, how can a small child decide that they want to be a drag queen? Wouldn't that be out of their control? Wouldn't they have already missed the mark considering that they're already in their young age? This is the agenda. If it was about acceptance, then just show yourself and read a book. But instead, they ask our children, do they want to be drag queens? They can't be something that they wasn't born with. If you were born with it, you can't have it both ways. You need to decide. That's not acceptance. That is indoctrination. Even in Canada, boy, I thought America had it bad. Canada's even worse. The law is set up over there to take the power away from the parents and put it in the hands of the children.
When asked about parents' rights, Auger says,
Well, actually, in Canada, parents' rights are limited and children's rights are put ahead. So the child has the right to be protected from the parents when the parents behave badly.
Children. And how dangerous is that? Because we know the children, their brains aren't even developed enough to make those type of decisions based on gender or sexuality. And they're teaching their children sexuality and gender fluidity and neutrality and all these other names and terms and pronouns and all this crap. They're teaching them this stuff in the schools, and parents are powerless to do anything about it.
People that are boys, there's people that are girls. There are people whose gender might be a little bit of both or might even be neither.
Lessons include books about transgender children, such as 10,000 Dresses, and songs like The Rainbow Song.
Gender won't decide the choices we make. Some boys like dressing up, some girls like catching snakes.
And they're advocating, they're happy that parents don't have a decision. And I wasn't going to do it, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to make the parallel. What's the difference between what the Nazis did to the German children when they indoctrinated them? They knew that there were some adults who would not get on board as readily as children would. And you can teach them that from a very young age. And no, I don't think that they plan on world domination or anything. I do believe some of them, it really is acceptance for their lifestyles, for their choices. But for others, it's more nefarious than that. Maybe not, again, world domination or murder, but they certainly, it's a nefarious act. There's nothing good about it. I think that the entire intent is really to take away people's ability to practice their faith, to eliminate God, to say that God got it wrong, that he misgendered, he dead named. That he in fact did create human beings to be fluid and sexuality to be fluid. That you can sleep with who you want to sleep with, you can do whatever you want to do, and there's no consequences and it doesn't matter. And besides, we can't use the argument anymore, according to them, about man and woman procreating because, hey, listen, we're slapping uteruses in men for as test dummies, and eventually we'll get to the point where we can have children ourselves. Won't happen. If it does, you're an experiment. But the whole purpose is to eliminate God in this picture. That's the way I see it. That's why I made the parallel. But But it is true. It is indoctrination. It is for your own intended purpose. And we keep giving in to it. So I'm saying we're not supposed to be acquiescing to your lunacy and giving in and defying all logic. I'm now going on the record today, and I'm now a 67-year-old Jewish man. And I expect my Social Security, as well as reparations. If we can pretend that we are anything that we want to be, then why not? Then why not? I was born in a very rich family. I was adopted. And I was born in a very rich family, and I've lived this life. I paid into Social Security. I'm now 67. I don't need the money, but I want to game the system. And I'd like the government to start sending me a check.
No problem. Good luck tomorrow, yeah?
For my retirement. Since we can pretend, and we can say whatever we want to say, and then when I tell people, they have to start acknowledging it. And not just telling people. Now we can start, now we can start filling out paperwork, and we can start changing our birth certificate. So can I commit a crime and start the process and then make the transition to become a woman? And then they say, well, a man did it. Well, I'll say, well, I'm not a man, I'm a woman.
We all know Bobby here, a man. He a man. So nobody punking nobody here. Am I right, Buddha? Do you or do you not recognize this a man standing here?
Yeah, I know he's a man.
I mean, this stuff is ridiculous, man. So again, if I start filling out that paperwork to become a 67-year-old man and start receiving my Social Security, I want to know how that's going to pan out for me.
You gonna eat your cornbread?
Oh, Trevor. Don't say nothing. Nobody take no cornbread from me. There's gonna be consequences and repercussions.
I refuse to play this game. Chelsea Manning, the traitor that Obama released at the end of his term, that's a man. Yeah, I said it. Your very own beloved Caitlyn Jenner, that's a man also. Their names are Bradley and Bruce. Bruce used to sound like such a tough name. What up, fellas? Plain and simple. Sympathy for this community cannot trump objective reality. Let me say that again. Sympathy for this group cannot trump objective reality. We're seeing dressing room issues all across the country, all across the world for that matter, in schools and gyms and clubs, spas, all over the place. The most recent story I can think of was a guy, I won't say the name of the gym, but a guy goes into the gym and into the locker room and he whips it out in front of all of these women. So they're appalled. They ask him to leave, he refused. So then they go to the manager. Hopefully that he'd do his job. Listen, there's a guy in the restroom, in our locker room, we want him out. He goes into the locker room. The guy says, I'm a woman.
Just because you wear a wig doesn't prove you're a girl.
Okay then.
The manager then calls upper management to get some guidance on what he should do, and they tell him pretty much to leave him alone. We'd have to lose that membership, the membership of those women, rather than be brought into court and sued for whatever amount of money that he thinks is necessary for his pain and suffering from his delusion. So with that being said, those women cancel their memberships. And these businesses are willing to do that. They're willing to lose you as a customer because they rather keep them to avoid the publicity, the negative publicity. They don't like the optics of saying that they are homophobic. And that's what I want to touch on, but I'll bring that up a little later. So these facilities are making these coward decisions to give in. And that's what it is. It's a coward decision. Let me ask you something. Can subjective perception trump objective observation? Think about that. These people are saying what they feel and how they feel and what they want to be called. And regardless of what you see, you're supposed to play along with it. And that's what matters to them. I refuse to ignore science over somebody's feelings. It's just not going to happen. And especially in our community where things are swept under the rug. Let's be serious. Mothers and fathers who know that uncles have abused our children, or fathers or stepfathers who have abused our children, we are afraid to report them. We don't want to get the law involved. And so we sweep it under the rug and it becomes some family secret for years and generations to come. It has to stop. No one has a right to hurt our children. No one has a right to touch our children. And if you know about it and you don't do anything about it, then you should be held accountable. Just as if I'm harboring a murderer. There are consequences for me harboring someone who is a fugitive of the law. If you know that this person has done something to your child, to someone else's child, man, listen, man, stop it. There's no such thing as no snitching when you're talking about the future consequences, which is what we're dealing with today, a large part in our culture with transgenderism and homosexuality. A lot of these people have been abused and we're not saying anything. So to the black community, there is no reason whatsoever, no community for that matter, but I'm addressing the black community specifically because I know personally that this is something that gets swept under the rug in our families. And we don't talk about it. And then that child grows up with all these feelings, knowing that they've been abused, that they've been touched, insulted, and people may have known about it. Or they were afraid to come to these parents or uncles or whomever, the person who has care, custody, and control over them, to say, this is what happened to me. And will they believe me? Or will they blame me? Will there be victim blaming? I mean, we've seen it time and time again. Like the movie Precious outlined it. It depicted it, you know, the same scenario where she's abused. And it's like, oh, well, you wore this. Or you know, the way you were looking at my husband. See, a lot of these people, they don't have the mental capacity to care for children in the first place. A lot of these people. And these children are raised in these homes. And I'm not sure how much we can really do about it because we don't know. We don't know what home is caring for their child and what home is not caring for those children. But what we can't do is know about it and ignore it. And what we can't do is pretend like what exists today in our culture is not a result of abuse that's taking place in some form or fashion. And maybe it wasn't sexual abuse, but maybe it was physical abuse or it was isolation. And another thing, is there any surprise that if I grew up with my sisters and I'm the only child, which I was not, but if I were, and I was the only son, and I grew up with a bunch of sisters, is there any confusion that I would want to possibly play with their dolls or, you know, maybe play with the Tea Party set? Especially if you're around the same age as you grow up. That doesn't make you gay. Is there any confusion that if a young girl who grows up around her brothers decide that, you know, I look up to my brothers, I want to play basketball too, I want to play football as well, that doesn't make you gay. The problem is these sicko parents in these schools who are intervening and saying, well, listen now, and this is not, again, not my opinion, this is a fact. Schools are now saying if she's playing basketball or you're playing with a specific toy, oh, then you must identify with the boys. It's okay to be a boy if you think you're a boy.
Our problem is not the teachers, the educators, the administrators. This is a battle in the heavenlies.
He says Satan is going after their most vulnerable, the children.
And the little girl came home in tears because the teacher had told her, since she was playing with some toys in the class that were deemed to be masculine in nature, that she was likely a boy in a girl's body. The mother went to the school the very next day, and instead of having any sort of tolerance or support or understanding, she was actually called names.
This is manipulation. This is propaganda. This is indoctrination. This is the definition of what it is. Don't say that it is acceptance. It has nothing to do with acceptance for a lot of you. For a lot of you, it has everything to do with what I said before. Perhaps you want them more sympathetic to your cause. And so that's what it's about, your acceptance. But I believe it's more nefarious than that. The larger powers to be, it is to replace God. God does not exist in your minds and in your heart because he made a mistake. He misgendered. He dead named, like Twitter stated. Let's not lose focus, people. Hold them accountable. Keep them honest. Say it.
It's a serious thing that we have to face today, because if you express disapproval of any form of behavior in the culture, you're likely to be accused of indulging in hate speech. And even homophobia, the word itself, suggests fear of those who have a particular sexual orientation. I don't think it has anything to do with fear. I think it has to do with whether this is a behavioral pattern that is acceptable to God. And if we preach what the Bible teaches, then that must mean that we hate people who are into this thing. That's really a silly inference from it.
It reminds me of the show Scandal. And the character on there, Olivia, she'd have a candidate that she was supporting or someone she was going after. And if she knew that they'd done something, or maybe she just wanted to dig up dirt, and they create the narrative around it. And they start to say buzzwords or chants or something like that. And again, if you say it loud enough and long enough, and people would start to believe it, and they start to regurgitate what's been said. And so that's what this whole idea, this homophobic issue came about. Sure, are there some people who truly were fearful of them? And I don't think it was really fear. I think that's ignorance. I don't think you can deduce from what they're doing, from what they said, as being fearful of you. They just don't accept your behavior, and you can't accept that. Let's be truthful about it. But sure, there's a phobia of spiders, and there's a phobia of the dark, and some people have a phobia of killer clowns.
Knock my block off.
But there is no phobia of homosexuals. I don't know anyone who's ever expressed, or that I picked up from them, that somehow they are afraid of men who sleep with men, or women who sleep with women. Nobody's afraid of that. Most of the people that I'm aware of don't truly care what you do in your private life. They only intervene when they see these issues come up, like, restrooms. And so then we act as if there's not a real issue that doesn't affect us. And so we have no right to speak. And if we do speak out, then we have to be homophobic. There's no such thing. I'm just against your lifestyle. And I believe that it is a mental illness that needs to be treated. But you're not willing to be treated, because why do you have to when people are placating, when people are supporting the lifestyle, even when it's a detriment to their own family? The objective is to rid people that God, the concept of God, that he actually exists, because he made a mistake. And if God is perfect, he would not have. No, it's not. So I'm going to ask you again, can subjective perception trump objective observation? And I say it can't. Don't allow these groups, these organizations, or individuals to strong arm you and start abandoning your morality for sensitivity. I appreciate you watching my video. This is Doc. Please like the video if you like it, or don't like it, but I hope you like the video. And share it, if you can, with all your family and friends. But again, there is a warning at the beginning of the video. It may contain material and content that is not suitable for young children, or sensitive people, or killer clowns. Thank you. I appreciate you watching my video. This is Doc. I'm signing off.